to now. I call Mr Dominic Bradley.
Cormila Mayogat Las Concordia Augustaha Sorum Parcha Glacus at Gisparach Shaw. Agus Boilum Makuch Kaincha a Yeru the service Tussi a Gursi Educus. Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Now it is. I wish to direct my remarks towards the education budget and to focus them in particular on the effects that this budget will have on frontline services. Now, Mr Speaker, the aggregated schools budget is the budget which serves frontline services, as the Chair of Education pointed out earlier on, right down to the classroom. It is a budget that provides for teachers. It is the budget that provides for classroom assistants. Yet, in the education budget here, we see a reduction of 26 million in the first year, 85 in the second, 114 in the third, and 180 million in the fourth. Mr Speaker, that is a devastating blow to frontline services in education. And it is quite clear from the answers that we got from the Minister of Education during question time on the 1st of February in response to my colleagues Margaret Ritchie and Thomas Burns. It is quite clear that the Education Minister is not prepared to say openly and honestly what effects these cuts will have on frontline services, including teaching and classroom assistance jobs. Now, a major teaching union has told us that they estimate that these cuts will equate to the loss of 5,000 teaching jobs. And in response to that, the Minister has said, "I am not going to go down the same road as other ministers by scaremongering and making all sorts of wild guesstimates about job losses in order to position my department for any additional funds." And Mr Speaker, I said to the Minister, it's time that she come up with estimates of job losses which are going to be a result of these cuts. And it's also time that she began to position herself to gain extra funds for her department, rather than standing on the sideline and looking on whilst others try to make the case on her behalf. The Minister, the estimates by the teachers' unions are confirmed also by the management side. When it was put to the CCMS that 5,000 jobs could be lost from the teaching force because of these cuts, they said that that was an accurate estimate. The Minister is telling us that she will not be in a position to assess the impact of her cuts until the remaining 840 million of revenue is allocated. She says only at that stage can the impact for all educational services be properly assessed. But, Mr Speaker, the fact of the matter is that the 842 million that she refers to has already been allocated and will not be available to be bid for. So where will she get the additional money from? And does the Minister expect us to believe that she is proposing deep cuts to schools' budgets without knowing the potential impact of those cuts? Mr Speaker, I contend that the general public, the schools, the teaching profession have the right to know the answers to these questions. This live old horse attitude that the Minister has is simply not good enough. The Minister of Finance has said that there was 1.6 billion available in revenue, potentially. He has also told us that the 842 million the Minister of Education refers to has already been allocated through the budget, and the remainder of that sum of 1.6 million has not yet been realised and will not be available to be bid for until it is realised. In fact, he said during the budget debate on the 31st of January, for that reason, any kind of revenue measures that have been suggested, which we cannot be sure will be delivered on, have not and will not be included in the budget. Ministers can make all the bids they want, but if the money is not there, they cannot make bids for it. It is as simple as that." End of quote. So the Minister of Education is telling us that she is going to supplement her budget with money which doesn't exist. I think she should come clean. I think she is displaying a remarkable degree of ignorance of the facts of this budget. She is creating a false expectation of future extra funding which is far from being assured. She needs to tell the facts of her action and tell the education community the truth about the budget situation. Where exactly will she get the extra resources she says are there? Maybe she's thinking of redirecting the 80 million from the slush fund into education, and if she does that, I certainly will welcome that. But, Mr. Speaker, we need to reshape this education budget. I will, yes.
Would the member accept that in doing that the Minister for Education isn't on her own, when in fact at Environment the Minister for the Environment has actually based some computations in the budget around proposals for a levy on plastic bags, which in all probability aren't going to be legislated for, won't exist, and that for the imaginary £4 million which is supposed to be raised as a result of this levy will not exist, and therefore they are projecting cutbacks on the basis of monies that is imaginary and Alice in Wonderland budgets anyway.
I thank the member for his intervention, and I couldn't agree with him more. And to return to the education budget, what I am saying is we cannot allow the education system to suffer the degree of cuts and the depths of cuts to frontline services which are contained in this Education Department budget. We must mitigate those in every possible way we can. So I propose that we reshape this education budget. We must see the Minister's spending plans, which we have not seen as yet. We must remember that education is a key economic driver, not only for the present but for the future also. And if we sell education short, we sell the economic prosperity of future generations short as well. I will.
Gorameg, Egon Bal, Asanjesha, teaching Kioncorla. On the Indian on Tusalum, Nogawil on Busage Shaw, Janta, Assassina, Marviche Janta, a Whitehall, a Lundine, August Gawilshi, Torches Jack, na Tory Cuts, Dushkart na Heron. Kumailishin, Bachart, Naira ve hin féin agus ahan party an seo will ag torch paciach there. Would the member agree with me that this budget is stamped made in England, it was manufactured in Whitehall and is being implemented here by Sinn Féin, the DUP, and by their new found supporters in the Alliance Party, doing the bidding of their spiritual leader, Mr Clegg? And does he agree that they should be shameful in supporting such a budget?
Yes, I thank the member for his intervention, and I would have to say that I agree with him, brief and all as the intervention was. But returning once again to the education budget, Mr Speaker, before I finish, as I said before, this is an education budget which we cannot accept. The Chair of the Education Committee has made that clear. I agree with him. The SDLP has revenue-raising proposals. They are outlined very clearly in our document, Partnership and Economic Recovery. And I would hope that the Minister of Finance and the Executive as a whole will examine carefully the proposals that are there and will use them to raise revenue which can be used to mitigate these deep cuts to education, which will have a severe impact on the young people in Northern Ireland, not only now but in the future. Kioncorla tá mé fíor bhuíocht as an seansa bheith agam páirte glachu sa díosparach seo. Thank you very much, Mr Speaker.